what we want to talk about today is going to be around the business case for skills. Just as we get started, for introductions, I'm Sandeep Nahata from TalenTeam, and joining me today is Rebecca Reagan-Thieme from SAP. Rebecca, if you want to say a quick word, introduce yourself.
Gladly, Sandeep. So, hi, everyone. Super excited to talk to Sandeep in front of you today. It's a new format for us that we're excited about. And I've been enjoying talking about skills with Sandeep for several years as the product lead for Talent Intelligence Hub. And even before that, we've been working together in the areas of learning and talent management for many years. And yeah, very excited to talk to you a little bit about what we've been learning along the way and find out also what you guys know and what kind of questions you have that we can help out with.
Okay. So, and again, as Sandeep Nahata, I'm from TalenTeam. If you're not familiar with TalenTeam, we have been a SuccessFactors solutions partner for over 13 years. And especially when I talk about skills, we've been part of the skills journey with SAP right from the beginning, right from when Talent Intelligence Hub was in its early stages, the early adopter care, and been helping customers shape the journey and plan their journey towards skills. This and our close relationship with SAP means that we've been able to engage with many customers, understand the pain points, help them put the business case together, and that's really what we want to talk about. As Rebecca said, the format for today is slightly different. We're not really presenting anything in terms of a slide deck or a demonstration. It's really more around the conversation on building a business case. What are the challenges we see? Where are organizations? Where the organizations are? How are the business cases being put forward? And would love you to participate in these conversations as well. So as Rebecca and I chat, if there are questions you would like to ask either one of us or both of us, please put those into the Q&A area of Zoom, and we'd love to make it more conversational. So as we go into this, let's kick off with what feels like the question of the year. Skills are everywhere. It's the topic that's moved from HR blogs being everywhere to boardroom conversations. Rebecca, why do you think skills have become such a big focus for so many companies today?
Sandeep, I think we've seen a few different things actually feeding into the same stream and the same trends. First of all, we had a real wake-up moment when COVID hit and everyone needed to learn how to do their work in different ways, including some companies, there was no point in doing what they were doing and they needed to actually switch gears and do something else. So we saw, for example, companies who were distillers in the United States changing over to actually making disinfection stuff for our hands. And they had to quickly figure out not only which machines could be used and how can they produce these things and bottle in a different kind of bottle, et cetera. They had to figure out who are the right people to get the new jobs done. We saw that here in SAP, for example, in Germany, where a lot of challenge was encountered trying to find people to jump on a project to create the contact application that the government of Germany offered in Germany. Our CEO, Christian Klein, looked at what that situation was like and he said, okay, we need to know who has which skills at all times so that we can be agile. So that's, I think, one thing. And then we've seen as things developed with the Great Resignation and people disengaging, a real desire on the part of our company, our customers, to figure out how to help people understand what kind of perspective, what kind of future they had with their own company and make it real for them that they could develop their careers, they could advance and gain new experiences without necessarily changing companies. The thing that I think is really interesting is we see a lot of strength in skills for that kind of aim if we want to engage people and make the opportunities really available to people across the board, no matter who they know, et cetera. It's great to have a good skills profile and a good sense of what skills are needed to get the work done. But then if you look at when the situation flips and all of a sudden we do actually have a little more power in the employer's hands again, then they need to think about, well, we're going to be reducing workforce, for example, in times of economic challenge, and figuring out how do they continue to get the work done with a smaller workforce. So we really keep seeing the situation change, and in kind of delightful hypothesis and results, we're seeing that skills are really helpful in all of these situations. So I think that's one of the things that's really driving this, is that it's very powerful and flexible information and technology to use.
I agree. I'm hearing the same from many of our customers as well. A lot of customers telling us that the current structures, can't really keep up. Skills gives them people the ability to respond faster, plan quicker, and make better decisions as well. And similar to what you said as well, actually not a customer, but a colleague of mine who owns a restaurant, and I think they started the restaurant just shortly after COVID, when because of Brexit and COVID, UK lost a lot of the force around in the hospitality sector.
Mm-hmm.
So they were really struggling to recruit in that. And where they found the closest matching people is the airline industry, the hospitality from like cabin crews, etc. Because post-COVID, there was a lack of jobs available in that sector. So they were able to hire people from that sector to bring it in. Again, comes down to skills. Similarly, till a few years ago, and even today, we talk about the need for innovation, and we talk about that, don't be a Kodak, for example, in terms of constantly got to innovate yourself. And I think in a way that's now gone down to the people level, that instead of talking about the organization, I think we need to look at the specialization in people and how can we constantly get the most out of people, or, best utilize our people by truly understanding them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So skills have definitely become a business priority across these. The other thing, when we look at the workforce as well, it used to be about planning roles and charts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that's I think there's a need for more fluid structures, I think that existing model seems to be cracking under pressure. And we're seeing a lot of companies ask much deeper questions about the capabilities and readiness. What do you think, changes in the job market or workplace are making organizations rethink how they plan for people and roles?
I think one of the biggest things that I see is that customers who used to do an engagement with a management consulting firm or spend a lot of time with various subject matter experts throughout the business and committees and so forth, and they create what makes sense to them as a wonderful job architecture and descriptions of every roles and so forth. They're finding that the world is moving so fast. As soon as you've got that snapshot in place, it starts to degrade. So it's not really reflecting how people are really doing the work. I think most people on this call probably have had the experience of having a job description that really has very little to do with what they actually do day to day. And so people are wanting to use technology, use the opportunities we have actually with analysis capabilities of unstructured data that we get through AI, various other opportunities we have to look at the work that's being done in an organization and understand on a fairly constant basis what's actually happening and what are the things that are required to get that work done. So I think, we have not only a need, but also an opportunity right now. It's a problem that was on my mind 5 or 7 years ago when I was working in the SuccessFactors product organization on career development planning. We were really interested in how could we get to this. And at that time, we had a concept of big data, and we had the ability to store that big data. But boy, was it hard to make any sense out of that data. So now I think we really have the possibility of gaining insights from all the data that we collect and using that to keep the picture more current at all times. So that's one aspect.
Rebecca, looks like my audio's given up for some reason.
Okay. Well, you do sound clearer without the AirPods, which is an interesting one. And now I'm not sure if we can hear you. I'm not hearing you, no. Okay. Oh, I think I may have just heard you. Let's give it one more try.
I do apologize for this. Wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your patience. So I think another thing that we see is in our organizations becoming flatter, people working very different kinds of careers than we used to. We also see a need for engaging people and keeping people interested in what they're doing from one year to the next without necessarily being able to guarantee them a progression of promotions and the kinds of things that used to indicate to me I'm succeeding in my career. And so we're looking at, in a lot of companies, people really starting to collect kind of a portfolio of these are the experiences I've had, these are the certifications I've created, these are the skills that I've gained. And by making those portfolios not just something that's nice for me to look at or for me to understand, okay, I've done some things here, but also a way that I can be found for exciting new projects or potentially being put on a succession plan, this kind of thing. We really get the give and take that employees are looking for. If they're going to share that information, they want to also understand why it's helpful for them. And I think this is one way of solving that problem where I think a lot of us, I've been in, for example, the exact same position, the exact same level for several years at this point, although my actual duties and tasks and responsibilities keep shifting and changing. So having a way to actually reflect that in the system, I think is, it's actually of comfort to people because you feel like, okay, there is a recognition, there's a way to show what it is I've been accomplishing.
I think it massively helps uncover all of that hidden potential within the organization as well, because, we've got so much more skills than our job descriptions can ever tell us about the organization. So it definitely helps, I think, one, uncover what we've got in the organization, but second, also maximize people's potential, give them more options. And I know, kind of working very closely with SAP, I know how the concept of opportunities, even before Opportunity Marketplace came about, to be honest, has been very popular. And, I know a lot of people at SAP who've been on fellowships, who've been on projects, very specific ones, to be able to expand on their own skills and be able to have their skills utilized much better within the organization. And I think, it's great that now with the Opportunity Marketplace in career talent development, we, really open this up to all of our customers as well.
Yeah, it's a real democratization of opportunities that used to be staffed based on who knew who. And this is really making it available to everyone who has the capability of doing the work. I think another really exciting connection in the SuccessFactors system is the ability to connect those opportunities to a dynamic team. So you staff the team using the democratized opportunity marketplace. You're bringing people together who maybe have never worked before together, and you gain more diversity in thinking in a particular area that way. And you also just help people create a deeper, broader network within the organization, really helping to contribute to engagement and belonging.
Absolutely. And of course, trying to, when we talk about moving to a skills-based organizations or a skills-focused organization, I think it's quite difficult to transform everything at once. Companies surely pick a few areas to pilot, just so, where I was starting, different areas to start. Have you seen much in terms of what parts organizations are prioritizing when they want to get started, the initial use cases that they are working towards? I've got my own views on this as well. I'd love to hear what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm seeing most commonly is situations where it is kind of a staffing model. So we have projects, we have customer engagements, whatever they might be, where people are assigned for a discrete period of time to do something. And not only do you need to, excuse me, track what they've been doing, but you also need to help people be found and help find the right people for these engagements. So one example I would say is a multinational banking company who's a customer of ours. They actually started with their own software development team because as a bank, they now also develop software, and that team doesn't necessarily have constant jobs to do the way we do at SuccessFactors because software is our number one duty, but they do have things that need to be done at all times, and it's better for them to keep a group of software developers on staff. So what they've done is they've put them in what they call a hive. And when there's a new project, they need to find the right swarm of busy bees for that hive. And so I think that's one really great way to find the right population, the right part of the organization to start to really push the envelope towards really skills-based processes. But we do also have, as you know, and probably our customers know, we have a model at SuccessFactors of 4 different kind of stages that an organization or an org unit can be in terms of how much skills are engaged or integrated into how they do things. Skills-based is really how I would describe that hive model. But we have a lot of folks who are just saying, okay, let's stick with what we've got and we'll start adding skills to it and see what happens with that. And they're also realizing a lot of value there. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it. That's just one.
I agree. And I think when we start to look at those four models as well, while there's a lot of conversation around skills based, which is, further on the right when we start to look at that, but it's a journey. So I think the one of the key parts is for organizations to understand where they are on the journey and look at steps to move towards that rather than, being completely overwhelmed with what it means to be a skills-based organization.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, the pilots and the conversation that we're seeing with customers, again, I've worked with a few different customers who come from a very different lens because, talent acquisition or recruiting seems to be one of the areas where there's almost an immediate justification that you can do or immediate results that you can show because you can almost immediately improve the recruitment that you're doing, the hiring that you're doing by being able to understand the skills of people, being able to assess people on skills and all of those. While for many of the other organizations, I think while there's been a conversation around career development for a very long time, organizations have struggled to put together career pathways and things like that. So I think they're looking at a whole career development model because once you target with skills, the recommendations start to work better and provide a lot more career development opportunities. So those are the two key areas that I've looked at most organizations are driving with. Learning seems to be underpinned with all of this. Organizations enable learning as part of that because it's an easy value for the employee. However, these are the two main use cases that I'm seeing from a lot of the customers.
Absolutely. Talent acquisition, you can really realize very immediate gains in metrics that you can actually measure, which is very important to making the case for continued development of a skills-led strategy. Really being able to show that this investment, because whether or not there's actually a lot of money going into it, there is time, there is effort involved in creating a strategy and executing on that strategy. So showing that there's actually real gains in the quality of hire, gains in the number of requisitions that recruiters can handle, all of these things, I think it's a very powerful tool for creating that business case and continuing to get that buy-in from stakeholders, for sure.
Absolutely. And in many ways, I believe, skills isn't just an HR project, right? When we go out to skills, we do have to connect a lot of this to business outcomes. And, that's where we're referring to in terms of being able to show that direct value as well. But when you're talking to customers who are about to get started on this journey, what have you seen? Are companies looking to link skills to goals like growth, cost savings, or just simply reducing risks, remaining competitive? What are the key, the key components behind the business case that you're seeing for a lot of these organizations? I have some really interesting conversation I had just last week at an event as well, where we had a conversation around that, which I'll share in a minute as well, but love to hear what you're seeing.
Sure. I think a lot of what I'm seeing are those more discrete cases where people can find some, numerical quantitative metrics that they can improve. That is really helpful. And then there are customers who are being a bit more bold in terms of forming a hypothesis around something a little less quantifiable, like reducing increasing engagement, reducing disengagement. We're talking about it from two different angles sometimes, but looking at how does it improve employee engagement to offer this in the career development space, for example. And another one that I've seen is people looking to just reduce the kind of revolving door, especially in certain areas, in certain kinds of employment where the level of commitment of an employee may not, it's not naturally the case that someone who applies to and goes to work at a grocery store in the Christmas season is planning to work there for the rest of their lives. But they're looking to see what can they do to make that experience for that person engaging enough and help those people feel valued enough that they are then interested in continuing to work for that company, perhaps coming back, perhaps doing an internship once they're in the university. We do have one large grocery chain customer who has, for a long time, had the explicit goal of having their next CEO be someone who started at a grocery store. And they have a lot of programs around really kind of nurturing that sense of belonging. So I think that's something where the customer has to be a bit bold. They have to come up with the hypothesis and figure out how are we going to test this hypothesis and how are we going to figure out our results. But we do see customers doing that. And I think that's one of the keys to really pushing the envelope in an area like this where, not a lot of customers have become fully skills-based. I think none that I've talked to so far, but being willing to try things and iterate, really kind of a scientific method, and learn from what they're experiencing in the field, in their workforce, in their business. It's very important.
I think skills-based is a journey, and I think continues to be a journey for most. I think I know of organizations who started on this 3-4 years ago using other solutions as well, now complementing SuccessFactors, of course, those solutions. They're still looking at exactly, they've got a lot of the skills data, but how do you really truly embed this within the business? How we drive the business functions of this? Just coming to how organizations justify this as well. As I said, I was in a conference last week, an executive exchange, and a question that came up is how do you justify, how do you measure the return of investment? And there was a certain organization that talked about that. Is it purely by being able to save money on headcounts, in terms of what we do? But of course, there are many other ways to look at this as well, because it may not just be about reducing headcounts. It can be about increased efficiency and increased outputs. You can measure it through being able to see how many of the recruits that you do, right, actually get through the probation or are actually retained because of whether it is because of a better hiring or because of better career and better engagement that you provide, that how much of those new hires you're able to retain, because obviously there's a massive cost on constant recruitment of people as well. And then beyond that, obviously the people retention, right? That's one of the other areas where you can very easily showcase value. Again, not instant, but over a period of time, those are some of the areas where we see people looking to measure the return on investment as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. There's a few questions in the chat. I'm going to pick up a couple of those. I know there's a few. We'll pick up a couple of those, continue our conversation, and then continue to pick up some of the other ones. So there's a question from Tamara. I wonder who, from your perspective, owns skills, HR or business, employees or people leaders, and also what is the main purpose of skills? Sourcing, workforce planning, tasks planning. Rebecca, give you.
Sure. So I feel a little guilty giving you this answer, but it really does depend. When I talk to customers about creating their case for making this journey to being more skills-based in their processes, we always talk at first about what are the priorities of the business right now. In some cases, it's growth. In other cases, it's, they're having trouble finding enough people to hire. So they want to focus on widening their funnel by removing more old-fashioned, not necessarily as pertinent qualifications as they used to have on job requisitions and so forth. Or in other cases, I talked to a customer who had a lot of growth, and so they had a lot of people move into management positions, and those folks were not trained to help guide and foster career development among their folks. So that was where they really needed to move the needle. So it really makes a difference if you align your business case and your plans for moving to skills-based processes with things that are already a priority for the organization. In terms of who owns skills, I would actually love to connect that with Ralph's question. So Ralph has asked us about managing and administering skills proficiency in the system against job roles is quite a challenge. And he's interested in how do you manage this additional workload when implementing a skills-based organization. I think actually the question of what is the main purpose of skills and who owns skills and so forth can be we can help to answer that question with some of the partners that we have. With TalenTeam, you are in partnership with Lightcast to bring some labor market insights into the process so that we can see, as a steel manufacturing company, what are our competitors doing, what is common in this industry, and so forth. I think in a lot of cases, being able to, as an HR organization, say, okay, we've got data that backs up what we're suggesting, it can help you get that stakeholder buy-in and get people really validating your hypotheses. So it's not actually just the business owning the skills or the skill to job linkages. It's a combination of HR using data that's coming from the world, using data that's coming from your own information in the SuccessFactors system, which you make great use of, Sandeep, to do that. And then being able to get that validated, but knowing you're going to your business confident that you have good reasons for bringing these suggestions, whether it's the job architecture suggestions, or maybe you want to make some changes to some of the skill requirements, or then more specific to Ralph's question, understanding whether you in your organization have a similar proficiency need for a particular role or whether you have different ones. If you can use those benchmarks and get the reaction from the business, that can help to streamline and make more efficient that process of figuring out, calibrating those job roles and deciding what kind of proficiency do you need for various roles.
Absolutely. I think the need to automate the maintenance of skills, the operational element around that, I think is absolutely key. I think when we start to look at skills and its linkage to job profiles, I think they're just changing so dynamically at the moment that following a manual process basically means you're going to be out of date very, very quickly. And outdated data and outdated data points essentially mean, again, introducing more frustration and lack of engagement than actually what skills is meant to be able to drive for you. And as you said, Rebecca, obviously, we've been working closely with a lot of customers, through our tools, through our accelerators that we've built in helping organizations profile their roles, take it through the right approval processes, and be able to do that repeatedly across their roles at their chosen intervals, right? So whether you do it every 3 months or every 6 months, but making it very, very dynamic. I think the other piece, going back to Tamara's question, what's the main purpose of skills as well? I think it's all of those, right? I think it's really more around where you want to start, which will be driven by the priority of the organization. But ideally, you want to get to a point where a set of skills is helping you drive those business decisions, whether it's on sourcing, workforce planning, or task planning, or resourcing the right people for the right capabilities. So I think no, thanks for that. I think when we start to look at the need to move to skills and organizations wanting to move to skills as well, one of the things I see is the inability to take decisions or inaction on a lot of the organizations, right? And I think completely get it that it's one. I think there's a lot of focus on it currently, but that basically also means there's a lot of information out there and difficult for people to decide exactly what's right and how to move forward. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I've started the series that we're going through now, so that we can actually have a chat about it and help organizations uncover some of these. But there's a cost to standing still, and it can be quite a bit for a lot of the organizations. I guess it's important to understand that to the leaders understand that it's costing them not to invest into skills. Right. So I think that becomes quite important as well. And it's, through those business cases, through those examples, we've been talking to customers, talking to take it to their stakeholders or speaking to the senior stakeholders around things like how many roles they haven't been able to fill, how much productivity have they lost, right? How much people have they lost as a result of lack of career development functions and lack of having the right skills, even though the skills existed somewhere within the business.
Yeah, and I think there's
Absolutely.
another piece to that. If we don't have a fairly nuanced understanding of the skills required to get the work done, we miss out on opportunities to find people who have similar skills, for example, and upskill them in an area where maybe it's very expensive to hire for those skills. But you have a possibility of not only giving people the chance to shine and grow in your organization, but also bring those skills to the work that needs doing at a lower cost. So that's where I think some of the skills vendors that SuccessFactors and TalenTeam work with offer some really wonderful insights, just helping to understand people who have this skill often have this other skill, or they move on, they continue on in their growth and careers to gain this other skill. Understanding those relationships, I think, is really key to staying on top of these things without needing to do a lot of brute force. When I think about how these processes are working these days with AI, I imagine what would it take for a person to sit down and think about how do I find the right people to upskill in this area? It would take so many spreadsheets and so many articles. And I think it's basically impossible. It's too much information to process. But thankfully, now we have those GPUs to do that for us.
It is. At one of the conferences, a customer came around and talked about how they went through a similar exercise with competencies about 12 years ago. And by the time they finished, it was all outdated. So they were quite worried about doing this again.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, the reality is that today the access to technologies, tools that we've got today is very different to what we had 12 to 15 years ago, right? And just because, whether as an industry or as an organization, we failed, doesn't mean we don't try again. Because I think the only way to succeed is to do this again, right? And this time, I think we are much better equipped to be able to handle this. And again, when I say we, I talk about it as an industry, as an organization.
Yeah.
Indeed. Okay, perfect. So take a couple more questions. Do most clients start with the talent acquisition team and then slowly embed into other modules? Or are organizations determining full skills approach upfront, determining if we can slow roll as a pilot and impacts our flexibility to add on moving forward?
So in my experience, a lot of clients start with talent acquisition, specifically in the SuccessFactors suite. You can start using skills-based processes and some of our premium AI features that work with skills without actually implementing Talent Intelligence Hub. And as the product lead on Talent Intelligence Hub over a few years there, I am in a position to say we do have a challenging upgrade to Talent Intelligence Hub, which can be made easier by folks like Sandeep. I honestly think our early adopters would not have gotten over the line without you and TalenTeam. But yeah, it's been really great for customers to be able to start to see the value that they get out of using skills in the recruiting area of SuccessFactors to help make the case then for bringing skills into learning, career development, continuous performance management, all of these talent management processes where it is really required that you implement Talent Intelligence Hub. So that's one flavor of an answer to this. I'm sure you have other angles on this as well, Sandeep.
Absolutely. And, thanks for the kind words there. Obviously, we've worked very closely to ensure that the customers that were in the early adopter, we're able to help them. And, from working closely with the product team as well in ensuring that they get the right help. Yeah, I think talent acquisitions definitely, as I highlighted earlier in the conversation as well, I think is one of the areas where we can start to show immediate value, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that most organizations are starting there or that's the only place to start. I think we've got to determine within the organization, as we review kind of the use cases within the organization, what are going to be the high impact areas of bringing skills in. In another organization we worked with, I think it was learning was the biggest area that they saw as an impact. So we were able to get all of the learning content tagged with skills that was curated based on the jobs within the organization. So there are different methods to do this, and I think the approach will depend on the organization. This also brings me to the importance of persona mapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And change management. I think it's a very important step that I recommend to all customers, that as you get on the skills journey, identify the different persona, employee managers, senior stakeholders, HR VPs, etc., and work out what their journey looks like, where do skills add value, and then start to work out. So even though you may implement only part of the personas or part of the capabilities, it gives you the bigger picture and what you're trying to achieve towards or what you're trying to work towards. And I think that always helps in deciding what's the best place to start, but always keeping that end goal in mind as well. And I know, Rebecca, that, and especially in the work with Rinki, and I know you work quite closely as well, I think, there's been a lot of focus on the implementations driven by SAP as well, on persona mapping and the importance of change management.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm actually doing a new certification that SAP offers in change management because it's, I think, so important to being able to have good strategy conversations with our customers and help them create a good strategy. Okay, so I do see, here's a really easy question. If you don't mind if I grab Anna's question, Sandeep, the difference between competencies and skills is in a lot of ways almost philosophical, I would say. There are folks who are very attached to saying competencies are things that you can measure only in such and so a way, and skills are things that you can really put quantifiable measurements against, etc. In SuccessFactors, I will tell you that we are fairly agnostic, and there is only one structural difference in the system between competencies and skills, and that is that competencies can be associated with behaviors. So if you think back to behavior-based competencies, Lominger, or any of these other kind of structures for thinking about how we get work done, we have a way of supporting all that and supporting the rating of all that, very nuanced and very configurable inside SuccessFactors. So that is a great reason to use the competency object in SuccessFactors. On the other hand, the skills object in SuccessFactors is the object that's tied to all the AI functionality. So we do suggest if a company doesn't have a need to use those behavior-based competencies and potentially have a performance reform where I'm being rated on all my behaviors and that rolls up to a competency rating, all kinds of fancy stuff like people used to do, if they're looking to go a little more elegant, a little more simple, and also take advantage of the AI functionality in SuccessFactors, we recommend just going with the skills object. For folks who've had competencies in the past, I've actually just had a conversation this week with the product team who's still working on Talent Intelligence Hub and said, hey, folks, it's been on the roadmap for a long, long time. We need to give people a chance to migrate those old competencies into the skill object rather than the competency object. So I will say, if you've got competencies already in place and you want to turn on Talent Intelligence Hub, have a conversation with your partner. We do even have some support available for customers who are interested in talking with each other and with the product team in WorkZone. We have various ways to just make sure you're doing that migration in a way that gives you the best outcome possible with the new system. So in a way, a simple answer, in a way, a complex answer. It's a chance to give you a couple of little warning bells and notes, like pay attention to this when you're going on your skills journey.
No, thanks, Rebecca. I believe that also covers Srinivas's question as well, which was around, for customers already using competencies and great insight on what may be coming from the product side as well. So always appreciate those insights. I think there's one question that I'm happy to take, which is around other cases where people have used other technologies and integrated into SuccessFactors learning, where, for example, skills are in Workday for recruiting, but want consistency across into the LMS and SuccessFactors learning. There is actually a blog that I had written up. I don't think I can find that right now, but I'll make sure that we follow in a follow-up to this overall conversation, we're able to share that, where I talked about how organizations only using SuccessFactors learning, possibly with another core HR system or another skills-based system, how do you maximize and get benefit of competencies of skills within SuccessFactors? So I think that will definitely be helpful. And yes, it is possible to have your skill library synchronized with a different platform, bringing that into SuccessFactors to be able to then drive those capabilities in SuccessFactors. One more question, Rebecca. What is your perspective on contingent workforce skills? It's part of total workforce.
Yeah. So in my time as the lead on Talent Intelligence Hub, we actually did a lot of work with Fieldglass and with our S4 colleagues across SAP, basically, because the concept that we wanted to bring to reality in that project was the ability to source and staff people to projects, to engagements, et cetera, regardless of whether they were already contingent workers whose data was in SuccessFactors, whether they were employees in SuccessFactors, or whether they were even just potential contingent workers in Fieldglass. So SAP Fieldglass actually has an integration with SuccessFactors. If you create your skill library and you create your proficiency scale in SuccessFactors, that can be populated over to Fieldglass, so that then in another system, whether it's your own Power BI kind of thing, or in S4, we have something called Cloud for Project that allows the resource manager, the person staffing a particular engagement, to find people from that entire population by the skills and the proficiency levels that they have. The idea is to eventually also make that possible across such things as, work authorization. Actually, we do have that in as well. A lot of the things in EC, yes, we're excited about it. A lot of the things in EC that can help you understand if a person has the right language skills or work authorization, et cetera, that also flows down. So we do see that as very much a use case that we want to support very well. And I think it's just going to become more and more important as companies and organizations need more agility. And so they need to be able to make use of all different kinds of workforce.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to skills, similar to the previous question around if somebody has skills in Workday and utilizing it in learning, I think it's very important to ensure that a single set of skill profile is able to drive, multiple platforms. Like as an example, if you're managing that in SuccessFactors, then, out of the box integration into Fieldglass, making sure that it can drive that. For organizations using other tools where skills data is important, ensuring that you have the ability to exchange data on skills, people profiles, to be able to bring that and drive skills-based decision, not just in SuccessFactors, but, SuccessFactors driving the core data into any of the underlying systems to be able to drive decision making in those. That's really, when we talk about that skills-based target organization, that's really what it looks like. And again, as I said earlier, it's a journey, right? You may not have that on day one, but that's really what you're working towards. One more question: between position-based versus job role-based hiring based on skills, which is better and why?
So I suspect this may be Ujjwal Gupta, who is a colleague of mine, and I'm going to tell him he probably knows better than I do on that. That's a pretty complex question. What I can say is in the job architecture tool, Job Profile Builder, you can create job profiles based on either associated either with a job role or with a position. So in that situation, as far as I know, you can use the skill mapping to the whatever the job thing functionality that we have in Job Profile Builder either way. Exactly how that populates down to recruiting is where my own knowledge breaks. I don't know whether the position-based job profile can also be used as a basis for creating a requisition, or whether only the role-based job profile. Perhaps that's something you know. Perhaps my colleague will help us out in the chat. I don't actually know a full answer to that one there.
No, to be honest, I don't know when you create a requisition of a position whether it will take the position profile or not. But I think it does very much depend upon the answer to that question around which one's better. I think if you're maintaining the job profiles at a position level, you obviously have a different requirement to have those job profiles at a position level, in which case that is obviously going to be better. But from what I see, most organizations don't actually go down to creating the profiles at the position level. They create it at the job role level, largely because of the the overheads on maintaining these job profiles on an ongoing basis as well. With the introduction of the custom field-based job profiles, or being able to link job profiles to custom fields, I think there was obviously an additional layer of flexibility that came in last year, which again means that we can have it at job role level, but with a little bit more flexibility rather than having to go down to the position level. So it really depends upon how how you maintain your job profiles, which will answer that question. And I think we've got one more question. Is it possible to link skills to goals? And Rebecca, this is an easy one, so I'll take it. Yes.
Yeah.
Skills and attributes are spread all across SuccessFactors, right? So I think when we start to look at attributes in the Talent Intelligence Hub, these are used in obviously growth portfolio to drive the profile, but then it starts to go into goals management, performance forms, being able to utilize in mentoring to find matches, being able to drive learning of it. So Dinesh, the skills and attributes are used across the whole SuccessFactors platform to drive personalization, to drive the right recommendation, and really helping organize and helping individuals develop on those skills, whether it's through goals, whether it's through learning linked to those skills.
I would add, if it's okay, I do have a personal point of view that I hold very strongly, and I know other folks in the industry do as well, that you have to be careful about specifically assessing proficiency on skills and having that be associated with performance ratings. A lot of folks think that all of that functionality and all of that process belongs in the development world, because we want to make sure that if we're hiring people who are qualified to do the job, or maybe it's a little bit of a stretch for them, the goal type that you should use to get them upskilled to the right level should be a development goal. And then the performance goals should be more around your business outcomes, the things that the person should be affecting, making possible for the business. And it's possible, I think, to be really effective and impactful, maybe in the areas where I'm really strong already, while also developing in areas that I'm not as strong in. So we like to recommend that customers keep these ideas separate because you can inadvertently foster a kind of fear about being honest about your proficiency level in the skills profile, and just making it something that's not associated with my bonus, achievement. All of these kinds of things is considered a better practice by a lot of folks. So I'll just put it that way. That's my opinion. I think there are people who are doing skill-based compensation, and that is usually done, I think, through a slightly different mechanism than the performance form, also for the same reason. So there are ways to do it that don't make it scary for workers. And I'm pretty into making it feel safe and engaging to use the functionality around skills.
I think assessing skills, validating skills, I think is another whole hour-long conversation, because, there's just so many different ways to do it. And, at the same time, I think when we talk about assessing skills, in a certain way, I guess in a predefined approach, quite often the challenges can also be breaks the whole self model as well. Because, I think when we start to add skills, the manager may not necessarily know about all of my skills and the capabilities, and we don't want the system to be limited to only my work skill profile. The whole point around the skill profile, etc., is to be able to expand that into all of my skills.
Absolutely.
I think we'll keep that for another conversation, because, I think, as you know, Rebecca, I think we've been working a lot on skills assessments and validation, and it's definitely an area very close to kind of, to my heart and kind of what I'm working on at the moment. Excellent. So, Becca, any last words of advice, guidance for organizations who are currently in the phase of putting a business case together, putting a plan together around, what could they be doing, areas that they need to focus on? And we've covered some of those, like, pilots and how do you put out, how do you measure ROI, etc. But any further last bits of advice?
I think it's something that I'm actually talking about in a totally different context next week on a product management stream on LinkedIn. It's about storytelling and how getting people on board with a strategy has a lot to do with talking to their hearts as well as their heads. And actually, there are folks who will tell you that you can throw numbers and information at people all day long, and it has almost no effect in comparison to winning them over on an emotional level. So there are various things we can do, but I think one of the best things we can do is imagine a great future. Don't be shy about imagining what you can accomplish with skills. Maybe it's something really bold, like allowing people to work for the same company for their entire lives while having a diverse career, while learning all sorts of different things and rotating through different departments. And maybe that's something that really inspires you and fits with your people strategy, whatever it might be. I do think that painting a picture of the future and then working towards that is a great way to win people over, to also create a North Star. I think for me, in the whole time that I was working as the product lead for Talent Intelligence Hub, my North Star is to have people connected with work where not only they're bringing more value to the organization because they're just the right person for that work, but also they feel amazing because they're just the right person for that work. And I think there's just a lot that you can kind of how do I put it? So when it comes time to make decisions, when it comes time to prioritize, having a North Star like that can really help make some of those decisions pretty quick and easy. That would be a tip from me.
I agree. And, I think to support that on how do you build that story, I think I'm going to go back to the persona conversation that we did earlier. That really helps first you as the core project team or the core skills team, visualize that for yourselves in terms of the value that you could be bringing to each of these stakeholders to then start to put a shape and vision around that story that you could be telling individuals. And I think another big place that helps with is that change management aspect. As soon as you recognize the areas of impact, it helps you so much better to manage the change within the organization as well. Skills and career development can never be a stick approach, right? I think it's always got to be what's in it for the user, what's in it for each of your persona, and one of the persona is the organization itself. Right, in terms of the benefit it brings to the organization. So when we talk about persona, it's not just about individual. It starts from the individuals, the different kind of individuals you have, but also the organization, the senior leadership, the benefits for them, the value it drives. And I completely agree, Rebecca, that I think being able to deliver that story, being able to highlight the value and the benefits is super critical in a successful adoption within the organization, and of course, in a very successful business case being put forward as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think on that note, I also want to highlight that, at TalenTeam, we do support organizations with something called a skills transformation plan, where we run through a whole series of workshops to help you identify a mission for skills, your skills vision, being able to work through the business case, identifying the persona, identifying journeys, asking you the right questions so that we can try and articulate the return on investment as well. So building an ROI, I don't think we'll ever be able to answer that question for you, but we can ask you the right questions as organizations to help you visualize and put that together, which can quite often help organizations get that stakeholder approval and the buy-in, the correct buy-in rather than just a technical proof of concept project, which a lot of organizations are doing. And, while I think it's great to explore the technology, I do strongly recommend knowing what the vision is, having that vision in mind as well. So, it's something that we're supporting a lot of organizations with our skills transformation plan as a solution or an offering. I think with that, and given the 6 minutes left, I think happy to take any last questions that come through. But other than that, I think, Rebecca, I've really enjoyed this chat. I think, as I said, it's a new format for a lot of the TalenTeam webinars and events we've done. And, I think I've really enjoyed this conversation.
I agree completely. I did see that Maria had raised her hand, Maria B. I don't know if the participants have the ability to come off of mute, but maybe you could type it into the Q&A.
See if it's possible to. Maria, your hand's no longer up. If do you still have a question, put your hand up again. I'm happy to unmute you, or you can put your question in the chat.
And I'm just checking. I did not totally understand. I didn't remember Maria's name, but I might recognize it. Oh yeah, here it is. I'm going to click allow to talk. Maria, if you want to talk with us, you're welcome to. You just have to unmute yourself using the button at the bottom of the screen. It may have been an accident, of course. Some folks were giving us applause, which is really appreciated. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, possibly Maria just meant to do that. I don't know.
And so, Maria, feel free to come off mute if that wasn't a mistake. At the same time, we do plan to hold these sessions quite regularly. Vinisha, if you're able to bring up the slider on the next session that we've got next month. So there's a QR code that should be coming up on the screen in a minute.
And Trish has a question, Sandeep, about getting the recording of this session.
Absolutely. So, Trish, recordings will be sent out in the next, I believe, a day or two. I think in an automated email with the recording of the session will be going out to everyone. So you should have access to it. And I believe you'll be able to share it with your colleagues, etc., as well, if need be. But the recordings, definitely, all of these sessions are going to be recorded, will be available on TalenTeam's website under the recorded webinars, I believe. And you'll also get an email in the next couple of days with the link to the recording. As I said, we do plan to hold these quite regularly now, I believe almost on a monthly basis. The next session that we're running is actually with Lightcast. If you're not familiar with Lightcast, again, a major player in the skills and labor market data, and we partner with them quite closely to be able to drive a skills strategy for organizations. So we're running a session with them on the 14th of July, talking about the truth about skills-based transformation. No fluff, just results. So I strongly recommend attending that if you've got the time and availability on the day. Should be a very engaging session. And with that, again, thank you all for sticking around for the hour, listening to Rebecca and I talk about skills. And Rebecca, again, a massive thank you for your support on on the first one in the series of this session. So I'm really pleased you were able to help and support this. And I think, it's been a fantastic conversation.
I agree, Sandeep. It's been, as always, very interesting. I always learn something new from you, and the collaboration is just a delight. Thanks, everyone, for your time and for hosting me today as well.